Welcome back to the Lady Tech Africa podcast and another installment of our Future Forward series. We are so excited for our guest today in studio. And once again, this series was inspired by the National Science Week. And this year's theme is living in a high-tech world. Should we be concerned? And on today's episode, we'll be unpacking the concept of disruptive technology. And in studio today, I've got with me Veliswa Boya, who is a technology strategist and developer advocate, working especially with, but not limited to, developers in the Sub-Saharan Africa region. She has fulfilled many roles in the tech space, which range from developer to business and system analysis, solutions architect, and cloud engineer. Veliswa especially enjoys working with those who are new to tech and those getting started with AWS. Welcome to the Lady Tech Africa podcast.
Thank you so much, Lerato. Thank you, Lady Tech. In Africa, we've been overdue for like a catch-up,
for something.
So really happy
right?
to finally be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, it's an honor. If there's you're one of the people I'm always bothering. Can I do this? I'm always asking you. I feel like I'm always asking you for this and that. And you're always willing to assist with whatever it is I'm asking for. So just to get into our conversations, I have 3 questions that I'll be asking you to get to know you. I kind of had to think about creative ways to get to know someone without asking them the dreaded interview question. Tell us about yourself. So the first question is, if you could send a letter to someone in the future about your life, what key moments would you highlight?
About my life, what would stand up as key moments always would be the moments where I actually stepped out of my comfort zone to learn something new. Mm-hmm. Learning something new is always so overwhelming and very scary, especially when you're stepping from a place where you were an expert and now you're going to step into a place where you're not anymore. It's very humbling. And a lot of us tend to shy away from that because of that. And I know it's very anxiety-inducing. It's always been. But all those key moments where I've stepped out of that comfort zone, learned something new, then put myself out there as, I don't know, I'm also still figuring it out. They brought change that's been quite amazing. And that's always moved me forward to the next thing. So it would be, don't be scared to step out of your comfort zone, do something that makes you feel uncomfortable and learn new things.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And, just also putting yourself out there, that's always so scary for me, that you are putting whatever it may be that you are working on, even if it's just maybe you are creating content about your family life or whatever it is. The thought of just putting yourself out there is always so scary. And whether that thing works out or not, it's definitely like a brave step, but often it just works out.
Yeah, it does. And you meet people who sometimes will help you along the way, which is great.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. And the second question is, what is one belief or value that's remained constant throughout your life, and how has that value guided your decisions?
If I say this one, I'm saying it not as I believe it. I'm saying it as I should believe it.
Yeah.
And a lot of us should believe it, but we don't. That we have value and that we're worth the things that we are pursuing or the things that we want. We're worth them. And I think sometimes what delays us is because we don't believe we're worth them. So that would be the value, that you're worth it. I think that's what I would say.
Yeah.
I think I'm saying it to you and I don't even know if I still believe it even today.
Yeah. Yeah, that is deep. I feel like you're talking to me. And the third question is, picture a roadmap of your life, right? what would be the most surprising detour be?
It would be where I am now in my career. I never saw it coming that I'd be in this role at Amazon Web Services where I have the impact that I have. And I guess that's come from how the world is starting to really open up and how tech is really making so much accessible to us, no matter where we are. I mean, for a role like this in the past, I would have had to move to the US or Europe somewhere to get a role like this. But these things are finding us now where we are if we put ourselves out there. It's always that reminder to put ourselves out there. This would be my most shocking one. Even people who used to work with me in the past are very shocked. So definitely would be this.
I absolutely love that. And that's the positives of the online and the digital space, that it's created all these opportunities that never existed before. But also, I guess you were also open to whatever, in a way. I love that. And thank you for answering those questions so beautifully. So today, this as I said to you when I was reaching out to you, was inspired by the National Science Week, which is running, I guess, throughout this week, but this episode will obviously air a bit later. And this year's theme that they've chosen is living in a high-tech world. Should we be concerned? And on today's episode, we'll be speaking more about unpacking the concept of disruptive technology. I mean, right now, obviously, artificial intelligence is what's getting people talking and is kind of disrupting the world as we know it, and businesses as well as careers. But I think to get into the conversation, what I will start with is, you are a tech strategist and developer advocate at AWS. I just want to understand, what does that mean? What does someone who's a developer advocate do? I don't think, apart from you, the first time I heard of that role was from you. So what does someone who is a developer advocate do? What does your role entail?
Okay. So the role of a developer advocate is to work with the developer community to help you build successfully with whatever that given tech is that they working with. So being at AWS, it would be the cloud services that we have on AWS. It's a very technical role in that we do the advocacy by showing you how to work with the tech. So we show you either by coming to speak at your meetups where all developers or whoever's building gather, and we'll do technical demonstrations on how to build with that, depending on what the topic is that we're actually discussing. It would be through creating YouTube videos. Last day we had to go onto TikTok because it's always about finding you where you are, and we meet you there. So last day the whole thing was everyone is on TikTok now, so you all have to go onto TikTok. Conferences, I do a lot of speaking at conferences. It's always technical tech talks. So that's what we do in a nutshell. And then being the region that we're in as well, I've also focused quite a lot on the mentorship side of things as well. We have a lot of upcoming, want to be cloud engineers, want to be a data scientist, all kinds of roles in tech and in cloud. And I do mentoring there as well. My thing has always been, I want to see more people come out of Africa being thought leaders in this space, being prominent and being quite known. We tend to be very shy when it comes to talking about the things that we know and the things that we're doing. Funny, I had a catch-up call with my manager, very senior manager yesterday. And I said, the whole generative AI conversation. And I said, Africa is building with generative AI, but we're not talking. So we're hearing a lot of people from Europe and everywhere else, but they say we're building it, just that we're not talking. So I do the mentorship on how to talk about the things that we're building. So I find people, I form these cohorts where I'll take you through how to build a blog post, how to create YouTube videos, focusing on the content side of it than the platform, more about how to formulate your content. So yeah.
Wow, that's really interesting. And especially around that we are doing the things, but we are not talking about it. Because even when I was, starting out with this Lady Tech Africa platform, I struggled to find content that was created either by South Africans or someone in Africa, that you can relate to and resonate with. A lot of the content that's out there is UK and the US, and they speak boldly about whatever it is that they are doing, even if it can be anything. Honestly, the content is out there, but I mean, we are seeing it slowly, but it's still not as much as you see it in the UK and the US. So that's definitely something that we do need in Africa.
Yeah.
Because we are using the tech, we are doing all these amazing things, but the content is just not there.
Yeah. I think we just get on with it.
Yeah.
And maybe sometimes we just need to do a bit more advocating for self by talking about what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. Now, today, obviously, the topic being disruptive technologies. What is it? When we talk about disruptive technologies, how do we define it? What exactly is disruptive technology?
So I would define it as a tech or any technology that comes to really change how we do things today. And in my lifetime in tech, off the top of my head, I can think of two. First one would be cloud.
Yes.
When cloud happened, businesses and all of us were used to the old way. Like, I used to work for banks, and I was at some point I became a solution architect. And whenever the business that we work with wanted to deploy a new application, they would come to us, and then we design the tech behind that. So designing that would start from what the hardware is going to look like, or the integrations to what software we're going to use to build that. When it comes to hardware, it was always physical servers, which would be acquire these from places like HP and all of those. You would wait for those to be delivered. Took months. Wait for them to be delivered. Once they're there, someone is to configure them before you can deploy that application. It used to take months. Then cloud came in. Cloud said, using the internet, you can access infrastructure in the cloud. So no longer do you need to order that physical software and wait. You can just log on and deploy via the internet. That was revolutionary. And it took quite some time. And I think most businesses are still working through it to wrap their hands around that. I remember my first architecture that I did when I was at this bank. We were used to quoting, because when you do the architecture, it also quote how much it's going to cost.
Yes.
They were used to seeing millions when you quote them. And they were fine with that. They could plan for that. And all of a sudden, you submit a quote that says, for the first 3 months you're running this, it's going to cost you 5,000 rands. It's like, no, I'm used to paying millions for it.
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Doesn't sound right.
Things like that. And I think it's taken everyone time to wrap their hands around it. And which other one really stands out? The one that's happening today is the whole conversation around generative AI.
Yes.
And is it really changing things? Is it revolutionary, transformative, or is it not? Where I'm seeing it being, okay, so I've got two stories there. I came across a post someone put up on LinkedIn, and they said, we're all talking about generative AI and how it's going to revolutionize everything, and why there's all this, and this is why there's all this conversation that, is it really that transformative?
Yes.
And then he said, how about let's look at it and look at how it can help us create the things that make us happy a lot faster than it used to take us to create the things that make us happy. I liked that perspective. But also, I've been traveling a lot, especially this year, just catching up with the communities throughout Africa, just to chat to people. What are you building, and how can I help you build better or build successfully on AWS? I have been amazed by the stories, because, with a lot of countries that we have in this continent, from employment isn't always something that's available.
Yes.
So folks have to go onto platforms like Upwork to get remote work. So I met a software engineer who told me that it used to take him so long, when you're starting out, especially because you're working remote at home, you're all alone. It used to take him so long to troubleshoot or to build something, which impacted his rating on Upwork, which meant that him getting the next gig would not be so easy.
Yeah.
And he said, with generative AI as a coding companion in his IDE, it has completely changed that, because now to troubleshoot, you just ask generative AI what is wrong here. Generative AI tells you, and off he goes.
Yeah.
I like that story. It's hugely impactful. And that's when I would say transformative.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And also just speaking to how long it used to take us to build software. The other day, I was just speaking to someone around, because I used to, when I got into tech, I was a technician. So just to do like a DR, a disaster recovery run, you plan for months, and you had to go to another physical building with computers set up to make sure that things work as they do at your original office. And also we used to have an actual server room in the building. And when things go down, you go into the server room to try and figure out what's wrong. But now you don't need all of that. Everything is sitting somewhere in the cloud. So that has definitely transformed the way we work, even as professionals within the industry. Yeah. And then what makes technology disruptive, and how is it distinguished from just normal evolution or normal progression of technology? How do we set it apart that this is just innovation and normal progression of the tech, and this is disrupting how we view the world, how we work, businesses, how businesses operate? How do we distinguish between the two?
I think for me, the example that would come up again would probably be the cloud one. I've found that to be quite disruptive.
Yes.
I think businesses would have happily carried on with physical and just getting improvements on the physical.
Yes.
And that would have been fine, because people went from physical servers to virtual machines. And I think that would have been a normal progress of that infrastructure. But to all of a sudden say, you don't even need to touch that. You now can just go via the internet using machines of someone else that who is the cloud service provider, and then using their technology and their infrastructure to deploy everything. I think that for me is the disruptive. I'm still not sure about the AI and the generative AI and how we can call that revolutionary. I still need to see use cases that really support that. But I'd say cloud for sure, because businesses, it's like that budget example. They were happy to pay the millions. They were used to it. They budgeted for that. And all of a sudden you come around and you say, that's completely, forget that. It's a completely different way of thinking, of doing things. And I think that's why it was difficult for a lot of people to wrap their hands around it. So, yeah.
Yeah. And, with the AI, I'm also still, two ways about it. That is this really disruptive? Also thinking, if you do some reading around it, you realize that this was coined back in the 19 whatever. It's not like in the community of knowledge experts within the tech industry. Obviously, it's not a new thing, but obviously to the world, it is a new concept. And I think a lot of it has to do with, we are all really trying to understand this thing for ourselves.
Yes.
And a lot of the information that's out there doesn't really accurately explain what it actually is, which is then the thing that's causing a lot of panic. Is this thing gonna take our jobs? And also going back to, I also think that cloud was one of the biggest disruptors, because it came with a lot of new jobs and opportunities that never existed before. Your cloud engineers, your DevOps engineers, etc. So perhaps even this new tech will also come with opportunities, and perhaps we need to look at it from that lens instead of thinking it's gonna take over.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to adoption and I guess adoption and resistance, with anything new, people are usually very resistant to change. And why do people and organizations often resist new technologies? What are some of the common barriers to adoption of new innovations? I know that in some of the African countries, they are also still slow to adoption of the cloud because they just don't understand how is my data going to live in another country when I am here. So what are some of the other barriers that you've seen to adoption of new technology?
Yeah, it's exactly, one of them is what you just mentioned. That mindset that your data now is not where you can just walk up. We used to joke that people prefer to have their applications sitting on servers that they can go and hug.
Yes.
You can't go and hug.
Yeah.
You can't go and hug your servers anymore. It's that, but there tends to be a lot of fear mixed with it. That you're giving up so much control. And also, I think education, I think it's such a mix of things. The comfort zone thing that I'm going to have to learn a new way of doing things. I was the expert with this and I must change. For big companies, there's regulation that's attached to it. I know at banks, right at the beginning with cloud, a lot of time was spent going to speak to regulators and telling them how this is going to work because, especially regulated industries, healthcare as well, someone's private information, we don't even know now where it's going to be sitting. Are we going to be able to access this when we want to access that? A lot of time was spent visiting regulators. I know when I moved to go to the second bank where I was, at the time with every workload, I'm sure now it's progressed, but with every workload that had to be run past the regulator. And I mean, no disrespect, they tend to be a bit behind in terms of understanding of tech. Now you have to convince someone who doesn't understand technology as much as you do to give you permission to move forward. So that was such a delay as well. But I think a lot of it is just the fear of an unknown and giving up control and creating safe spaces where people feel safe to learn new things. I think that can be really helpful, and just creating that culture of learning and that you support learning here. I think that can help people, kind of embrace it and move forward with it.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I mean, even in organizations, you find that when you are not even something disruptive, but when you are introducing a new piece of software or a new application, you have to go on a journey with people because they're like, but this works. Why are you bringing in? What is it going? So also finding the way to, I guess, make it relatable to a person who is non-tech. That this is how this is going to benefit you. This is how it's going to benefit your role and whatever the organization is trying to achieve. Yeah. And then you've been in the tech industry for several years. Can you share some historical examples of disruptive tech that significantly reshaped industries?
What can I think of right now? Okay, if we start to talk about that, then it's going to show just how old I am. But so, shucks, I think what I can come up with off the top of my head would be all these new programming languages that come up all the time. So I started out working on mainframes. And you wrote natural AWS, that was what I specialized in COBOL.
Yeah.
And I mean, a short COBOL program is 3,000 lines long. If you have to troubleshoot that, you are scrolling through or crawling through 3,000 lines of code. And I remember, because then I worked at a bank. I've always worked at banks. I worked at a bank as well a long time ago then. And they said we're going from natural and COBOL, and the system is going to be all rewritten in Java. Object-oriented programming. It is a completely different way of looking at things. And that's where also the struggle came, because I'm used to writing my code top to bottom. And now you tell me to jump all over the place with object-oriented programming. It was hard for a lot of people. And that's why a lot of people just walked away and they didn't do it, because that change of mindset. But it was a lot more powerful than more efficient, let me say, more efficient than what we were used to. So it made sense that businesses were wanting to move away. A lot more efficient and a lot more much easier to maintain as well. And that's why they changed. So I would say the evolution of programming languages as well. Like now I have a live demo that I have to do next week.
Yeah.
And it's using generative AI, but it's writing a Python small piece of code. But it's so small. I look at it, I'm like, are we done? Because again, I'm used to things being
this
hard.
Doesn't look right, are you sure?
So I would say it's that, and just having to always wrap your head around this new thing, and a change of mindset and a change in way of learning. And I mean, back then with mainframes, if you wanted to read up, you had to pull a hard copy manual to figure out what's going on. Whereas now people on the internet, there are all these platforms on the internet, you can ask for help when you get stuck. It's a completely different way of doing things.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. That has completely disrupted. I mean, now you can get anyone to learn, how to code. Whereas, before, even when I was starting out or even studying, we used to be told that this is only for smart people. So what does it mean? Like, people that are not doing IT are not smart.
Seriously.
Yeah, but definitely programming languages is one of the big ones. How that has evolved over time. I mean, you speak to your COBOL and your mainframe, those are COBOL developers now are hard to find.
Yes.
When organizations, especially in the financial services, are looking for COBOL developers, like, they will interview for months on end before they can get someone who's skilled in that.
And they paid so well. There was a joke recently. My teammates, I think someone was talking about looking for COBOL programmers.
Yeah.
And someone said, go to Switzerland. They all live in Switzerland. They can afford to live in Switzerland.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So guys, are you listening? COBOL developers. Yeah. I love that. Now, AWS has been one of the key players in cloud innovation. It's one of the key players in cloud innovation. How do you see cloud native technologies, for example, your serverless computing, containerization, your microservices, contributing to the next wave of innovative tech or disruptive technology?
So the other thing that I always talk about when we talk about moving workloads onto the cloud is that, again, referencing the COBOL example.
Yes.
I once did a demo where I showed how to take a COBOL program and deploy it on AWS using serverless services. And part of why I did it was people who work with these technologies that are considered as older technologies, they tend to get left behind, because you know how corporations are. They always focus on what's new and exciting today. So when there's a big transformation initiative going on, they will leave behind the people who are working on what they're considering not the cool stuff of today. And I always used to look for ways to make sure that they know that this is for them as well. So I did a demo. It was a live demo as well on Twitch. We had a big conference at work on Twitch, and I took a COBOL program onto AWS, and now when it gets there, it's deployed on serverless. But now what I also wanted to show is that you bring what's legacy onto the cloud, it gets onto the cloud, and suddenly it resides next to cloud native technologies which you can use to innovate. So for an example, you had a customer database that is sitting on premises, maybe in an older technology. You then bring it to the cloud. All of a sudden, you can do so much more with that customer information. You can apply machine learning to it and learn more about your customer. You can do so much other stuff. So bringing things to the cloud, because of the innovation that happens into the cloud, just allows you to do a lot more than you would be able to do outside of it. And for me, I've always liked that about the cloud because of that. And innovation there happens a lot quicker as well.
That's really interesting that, your legacy software, that with the cloud, it enables you to do a lot more than you'd be able to do as a standalone legacy piece of software. And I guess it also then pushes and challenges those that thought I will only work on this technology. Now it pushes them to also learn the cloud, because how do I then integrate this legacy piece of software into this new and exciting environment? Yeah. That's amazing. Now, data is one of the is increasingly becoming the backbone of most disruptive technologies of today. You need a lot of data privacy around it. Data is one of the key things now. What advancements has AWS made in terms of data lakes, in terms of analytics as well as storage, that will enable companies to kind of scale disruptive applications faster and more efficiently?
So I'm always amazed with the innovation that always happens. So I'm going to give an example of one service that we have. Amazon, it's a storage service for objects, so object storage. But this is limitless in terms of how much objects you can store there. And chances of you running out of storage, if you store objects, would be like PDF documents, images, can store there. So now you have these in the cloud residing next to everything else that's in the cloud. So again, the kind of innovation that you can do with your data that is now there. So there's always been a lot of services, things going bigger and becoming cheaper as well. Because to purchase storage that's going to allow you to store limitless would cost you a lot more if you're not doing that in the cloud. So what we've always done is, as we do the innovation around how you can work with your data in the cloud, how much data you can store, there's also been the price point coming down, which I found there to be quite amazing. And cloud service providers can do this because it is this endless shared space. So they can kind of afford to, we do that at AWS quite a lot. We give you back money instead of charging you more to use things. So it's been the features that are available, the services that are available, but with that also the cost coming down. I see that as one of the major innovations that have happened, because it also goes against what you would expect. You'd think, I'm getting more, I should be paying more, but the price points keep coming down is quite something.
Yeah. And the finance or the budget obviously impacts businesses significantly, because obviously businesses are always looking at how they can cut costs. So obviously being the ability to be able to use the latest tech, but also not spending millions and millions trying to get the latest technology. It makes a lot of difference in how organizations, and I guess also aligning with the bigger organization strategies. And in line with data, increasingly becoming the backbone, automation also becomes more critical and continues to revolutionize the way companies build and deploy software. How can we enable not only the developers, but also, innovators, people coming up with all these ideas alike, to build technologies with agility and reliability? Because when we want to automate things, it needs to tie in with whatever the strategy of the business is, right? So how do we ensure that, the developers that are working on these innovations align, are agile, but also are building with reliability?
So one of the offerings that I really liked available in the cloud, well, there are tools available outside of the cloud as well, but usually people who adopt them, it's with ultimately going into the cloud. Deploying your infrastructure as code. And what I like with that is that you get the reliability in that you get repetitiveness out of it. You are documenting what your infrastructure is going to look like in a template, which means you can reuse that because it's already there. If you now want to, so let's say first you deploy in development and then you're going to move test in production. You've written it out for dev. When it's time to ultimately move to prod, it's just a few parameters that you change and off you go. So you get repeatability and you can move faster as well because of that. So I like infrastructure as code because of that. But I know also, because it's also different again to how we used to doing things, that like for me, I've heard a lot of people who, they joke around with people who like to go into the console and click to deploy things, and they call us click ops. And I always say I am click ops because I'm comfortable there because that is how I came to learn about a lot of tech. But the automation side of things, we always then say you can start there, but you progress towards the automation side of things using infrastructure as code. So that plays quite a lot with how developers can deploy fast, reliably, and there's repeatability, and also those templates you can share with others as well, which is great. You create once and everyone else can adopt it.
Yeah, and it means then they are also able to work faster.
Yes.
Yeah. That's amazing. Now, as a tech strategist, right, and a developer advocate, what technical challenges are you often seeing developers face, and also when adopting AI-powered services? And what role do you then play in helping them overcome some of those challenges?
When it comes to AI, I would say one of the things that I think I'm liking about generative AI is how it's making AI look accessible. Outside of just having hands-on physical access to the tech, it's also the gatekeeping that's kind of going away. I remember when I started this role, and it would be like, say, I get invited somewhere and they'd say, come and speak about machine learning.
Yes.
I used to feel like I'm not qualified to talk about it because we used to see data scientists being the people. Like, who are you if you're not that?
Yeah.
But I'm finding that tech is starting to make itself available to anyone. So you just need to make yourself available to learn the tools, and then you can use them and you can talk about them if you want. So what I tend to see as what holds us back, sometimes I think it's just what can I really say? I would definitely say that when you don't think you are qualified to do it, and because of that you then don't make yourself available to learn that tech because you don't think you'll ever be the person. But then also, though, it is the actual physical hands-on access to the tech, like platforms like AWS. What I see a lot when I speak to developers throughout Africa, especially, and it's not just AWS. It's actually most platforms. To sign in and get an account, you need a credit card to sign up.
Yes, yeah.
And what happens to people who are not banked? Does it mean they can never access that technology? And even those who are banked, they say, I don't want to swipe here and enter my credit card details, and then I build something and I've made a mistake, and all of a sudden you're charging my credit card or debit card for the use of that. So because of that, they never access it. And it's why students tend to stay away from these techs, because definitely they cannot afford to take the chance to do that. A lot of it is because of that. I've seen the various cloud service providers come up with various ways to kind of remove that barrier. But barrier is definitely that. When we have platforms that are not accessible to everyone, especially us from the so-called third world, where we have so many people who are not banked, then it cuts them off and does not give them access to it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's quite interesting. And it's not a barrier that you think of. Obviously, we often, when we talk about barriers or no access to the technology, we are often thinking about the technology itself, either the internet or the equipment, which is your laptop or your tablet or whatever it is that you will use to get access. But even if you have access to internet and have the equipment, there's still other barriers that will keep you from learning, especially in the tech community. If you want to enter or if you want to learn a new technology, like the cloud stuff. I've never actually thought of that. Yeah. And you think that's something that's obvious to you. It's not always as obvious to someone else.
Yeah. And I think also being in South Africa, when I first got into this role, it was very eye-opening for me because we have access to things like, well, for the most part, access to the internet, laptops and all of that. And then you go to meet with people where that really is not an option. And we think, wow, yeah. And now it's all these considerations. Like signing up for an AWS account, for me, it's never been something that, because I always was able to do it. And to meet people who cannot was quite shocking for me.
Yeah. And how then have you seen, how do I ask this? Like, how do they get access to this technology or these educational platforms when they have those challenges that it's not an option? For me, I have a laptop at home, I have Wi-Fi, I can easily just log on and get access. But for some people, it really isn't an option. What ways?
Yeah, I learned about many things that people do. Like when I first met the community in Nigeria, there's a user group there that I used to work with. I learned that only 30% of them have access to laptops or have a laptop. So what they used to do, if there's going to be a hands-on workshop, they would meet in person and then they would peer program. So that's how you overcome not everyone having a laptop. And but now they have to rent space from these internet cafes to do that. And then when it comes to access to the AWS platform, at AWS we do have various options available. So if you want to get together and build together, we've got workshops that you can follow to do that. And when you sign up for a workshop, we will make a platform available for you for that duration of the workshop.
Oh,
so
okay.
You have that. So I always encourage many to do the hands-on workshops because those are tied to a platform. We have also skill builder program on AWS, skillbuilder.aws, which if you do a lab there, it again spins up an AWS account for you with all the services that you're going to need for whatever you're going to be building for that lab. So we do have options that we make available. There's also, if you're in Cape Town, we have a skill center in Cape Town, which is that physical premise that you can walk into and do cloud training in a classroom setting, which has been an amazing thing for us to get in Africa to start with, and to get that in South Africa.
Absolutely.
The one in Cape Town is the first one outside of the US. So probably only the third one in the world. Amazing that we could get that.
Wow, yeah.
There's so many stories of people already who've gone through training there. And then they get to access a platform that normally they wouldn't have access to, which has been great, yeah.
Wow. And I guess some of the people who want to introduce this, especially to, I'll always speak to, the education, and I guess in this case, perhaps high school students may benefit from this, that you conduct a workshop for them and just to get them thinking about these things while they are in high school, even though at the schools they may have limitation to your laptops and the internet, but if people can go in and kind of use those workshops and bring in the laptops just to get the learners exposed to these technologies, that's definitely something that's disrupting, that we can leverage to transform education.
And there are workshops of every level. So if you're starting out, we normally start rating from level 100. So someone who really starting out all the way to advanced. That skillbuilder.aws that I talked about is a great platform. You can go there, learn either only about a single service if you're starting out, or you can start learning about multiple services, learning how to put all of them together to build an end-to-end solution. So there's various options available.
Yeah, it's amazing. And then how do you see open source initiatives and partnerships like your Kubernetes and your TensorFlow influencing development of technology? And what opportunities do they provide for innovation?
So AWS hugely supports the open source community. We actually have teams dedicated to working with the open source community, exactly because the open source helps developers move faster as well. With very little of the again, I'd probably say barriers as well that tend to exist. So it encourages fast innovation. And we contribute to various open source communities and we support them as well. I've just met, so there's currently a Python conference happening in Cape Town. It's in 2 days. So it started yesterday and today. We are actually a huge one of the sponsors, huge partnership with that. Python just to support open source as well. And there is a community as well in Cameroon, Django. They built Django projects. Django is a Python framework as well, open source. And we work with them. We support that community. We just want to help them, give them the resources they need so that they can actually grow as a community as well. And what I'm liking, and I think that's the difference with these open source communities, is they're already very much geared towards building hands-on. So I've been looking for people who are building versus people who want to talk about the tech. People who actually want to now get their hands dirty to build. And I'm finding those communities to be very ready for that, and so supporting them and working with them.
Oh, okay. That's amazing. This is such very valuable information, even for the tech people that will watch this. These are definitely things to look out for. So now, given the work that you do and how you have a global view of the lay of the land, what advice would you give developers looking to leverage, particularly, I guess, AWS services to create solutions in industries like your healthcare, finances, and even logistics?
So first thing I'm going to say is we always look at ourselves, and I think we need to shake this. We didn't ask for this label, so let's not grab it and make it define us. I always talk about how we always think, in Africa, we don't have much that maybe we can. We always think, someone in the US is going to do it better, kind of a thing. We either wait or we want to follow them. And there's nothing stopping us from leading. We just as smart and as innovative. We have real world issues here that there's so much that we can solve using technology. It just takes us looking around ourselves and you can come up with a solution. So my advice would be, learn the text because you don't want to get left behind. But also don't learn just to learn it. Learn because you can become that thought leader. You can be the person that builds those solutions that solve real world problems. We're very creative and very innovative here. We really are. And I recently supported a hackathon that was happening in Nigeria. And they reached out and we then said, maybe with that support, let's have an AWS track. And they said with that, they want to build with generative AI services on AWS.
Mm-hmm.
A week before the hackathon started, I joined them on YouTube to just do live demos of these services that we have on AWS, these generative AI services we have on AWS. And the following week, they actually built solutions using them.
Wow.
And when they sent us what applications they built, they're really solving real world problems where they are. Unique problems that no one outside of where you are is going to come and solve them.
Yes.
You can solve them because you know your environment. So it's just to look around, learn the text. You never want to get left behind, but also knowing that you can be a leader in that space.
I absolutely love what you're saying. I was doing a short course a couple of months ago, an EdTech leadership course, and there's also a piece that they teach there that while you are creating all these amazing solutions, for this course specifically, it's in the education space, they say you need to think about how are the people experiencing the problem now, and not only focus on your solution, and so this, I just want to tie it back to, we are the best people to solve those problems because we live in the in the continent that has these problems, and we know how we are experiencing those issues here. And we are the best people to create the solutions for our own problems because we are the ones experiencing them, instead of getting someone who reads, who is not living the truth. We are living the truth, and I definitely agree that we are the best people to be creating those solutions, either in the healthcare space, financial. Payments is one of the most evolving or disruptive technologies within the African continent, because we have a lot of those informal businesses. But how do they digitize their their payments for their businesses? So I definitely agree with that how we see ourselves as Africans is important. And then the future of cloud, quantum computing is one of the most mentioned technologies as the next big disruptors. How do you see AWS's investments in these areas unfolding, and what should businesses be doing today to prepare for these kinds of shifts?
So, in line with that, for me, what I've seen us as AWS kind of make available is technologies that answer the edge computing side of things. And with edge computing is when you bring the processing of your data to your data, so where data is, and this would be when your data is also close to where your customer is. And we have services. So just think now what cloud makes available for you. With cloud, you can have customers, you can go global in minutes. So you can have an application that services customers all around the world. But now, depending on where you've deployed that application, you could start to experience things like your customer, let's say you've deployed it in the Cape Town region here. It could be that your customer that's accessing that application, let's say from somewhere in Asia, they would start to experience latency. So now we then say, how about you deploy your application close to where all your customers are? Because with cloud, you're now going global in minutes like that. And then with that, we then bring the processing of that data that you have deployed a lot closer to where your data is. So bring the processing of the data close to where the data is. So there's been a lot of inventions around edge computing. There's another service that we have on AWS. I see it as edge computing as well, but we're not really calling it that. We have regions. Regions are, within a region, you have availability zones, which are your data centers, essentially. So you will have a region like Cape Town is a region on AWS. Cape Town is a region, Ireland is a region, Paris is a region, all of those. But now what happens about customers that don't have a big region like that yet, but they've got customers they've got they would want to build applications there that for that regulation story we talked about, maybe the
Yes.
data can't leave.
Yes.
We then build a smaller version of a region called a local zone.
Oh, okay.
So it won't have everything that we would offer you in a region, but it's enough for you to get going. So we have actually a local zone in Lagos. We have in Morocco. We have, I think, Senegal is coming up. So it's to bring what's available in a region a lot closer to you. I kind of see it as edge computing, although we don't see it. So I think that's just helping with accessibility to cloud, even if you're not as close to where regions and all of these other things are. So that means you can still build, you can meet your regulatory requirements as well, and also just helps your customer feel a lot more comfortable because they know where their data is.
Yes. Yeah. Wow, that's definitely something companies, even your startups can look to. Yeah. And in just in closing, in the context of disruptive technology, right? How do you think the concept of multi-cloud hybrid cloud architecture is evolving, and how can organizations also there position themselves to remain the key players in that landscape?
Multi-cloud hybrid. Okay, I'm going to start on the hybrid side of things first. I know when a lot of banks, especially, were starting their cloud migration journeys. There was this, linked to regulation again. And you'd find that the regulator is like, oh, this application is very critical. We're not going to let you take that to the cloud. You can take whatever else you want, but not that. So now you've taken other applications in the cloud, which integrate or still talk to the one that you can't take to the cloud. So now then the thinking would be, how do you make sure that what's on premises and what's in the cloud still talk to each other?
Yes.
There's no disruption for the customer, so there's no latency issues and all of that. And you'd find like AWS would come with all other services that you can consider that help you make sure that you mitigate against all of those things. So there would be a lot of conversations around that. And sometimes it would be a journey that the customer just wants to see how it's going to play out, but later on they will move that one big application as well to the cloud. And in terms of multi-cloud, where I see customers really tap into it most times, it's when they don't want to feel locked into a single cloud service provider. You know, there's so many habits that it will take us time to get over. And I get it, I understand. So someone says, I don't want to be all in on AWS because what if something happens and everything's sitting there? I want to make sure that I can take this and move it somewhere else. So you'll find that they'll deploy applications across. It's not always the same application across different clouds. You'll find they just spread where their applications are. So let's say, like for a bank, your mobile banking is on AWS, but that same banking, but your web is now residing on another platform. So companies sometimes adopt that strategy just again to just feel a little bit safer. And how companies can actually continue to leverage or take advantage of that. The infrastructure as code that we talked about earlier, it's one of the inventions that came with that as in mind. Because if I have a template that can help me deploy on premises, I can use same to deploy on AWS, to deploy on Azure, to deploy everywhere else. So companies, if they start to look at these technologies that help them, still do that, but do it in a way that's repeatable, that's safe for them, because you have a template. Anything happens on AWS and you want to move somewhere else, just take that same template and then you go with that. So I think as companies build those strategies, they must think around the automation. They must think around the backup of their data as well. How's that looking? Where is it going to reside? What happens if you ever need to migrate your data to wherever you want to migrate it to? I think just looking at the technologies that support that multi-cloud strategy.
Wow, that's amazing. And obviously, I guess a lot of people in leadership roles in the tech space, these are some of the things that they need to be thinking about. Yeah. And also, I mean, in tech, we are always thinking about, we want resiliency in our applications, and we never want like your single point of failure. So it's definitely something that we should be thinking about and trying to implement.
Yes.
Yeah. I absolutely love this. This was amazing. And I feel like it went by so quickly. So how can our listeners get or follow your journey, or how do they reach out to you if they have any questions, especially with AWS Cloud starting out with their journeys?
Yeah, so I'm mostly to be found on LinkedIn.
Yes.
So that's where I really talk about work, and I
Yeah.
share a lot of information that's helpful
Yes.
if you are on a cloud journey. So definitely find me there. You can DM me there, connect, and then send me a DM with your questions. But also just follow the things I post. I post quite a lot, and
Yes.
usually it's I'm posting about upcoming events that you can maybe go to or attend online that will help you learn, resources that we have on AWS. When meetup groups happen, there's one coming up. Maybe I'll post about it there. So just stay close to that information as well, which can help you. Because another thing that's so helpful when you're learning something new is to find others who are learning or doing the thing that you want to learn. It's always great to have a support system around you. So I talk about also communities that you can find, you can learn together and just do things together. So but I'm on LinkedIn. Okay. Find me there, Veliswa Boya.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us on the Lady Tech Africa podcast. It was lovely talking to you today.
Thank you. Thank you, Lady Tech Africa. Thank you, Lerato. This was amazing.
Thank you. And if you've made it to the end, and if you're catching this via YouTube, comment, let us know down below what you think of this episode, the things that we are talking about today. Also share this with your communities so that they also have access to this knowledge that we shared today. And if you are catching this on your podcasting platforms, also engage with us there and let us know what you think. I'll also be posting Veliswa's details in the description. So share this with your communities, and thank you for joining us for another episode. See you on the next one.